name, your position, how long you've been in that position, and what seat you are seeking.
Okay, my name is Howard Lincoln Kearney. I am a computer programmer. I've been working as a computer programmer for, well, since 1978, probably too long to compute now in my life. I currently work for IBM. I've been with them for about 24 years. I am seeking the U.S. House of Representatives of District 1.
Okay, thank you so much. I'd like to introduce you to Donna Glapion and Brandon Gilmore, who will be asking you a list of questions. So let's get started.
Okay, I look forward to it.
How you doing, Mr. Kennedy?
It's Kearney, but hi, how are you?
I'm sorry, and I'm looking at it currently. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I understand. No worries, Brian.
All right, my first question is, at what point did you decide to seek the U.S. House of Representatives seats, and what skills do you possess that qualifies you to preside over this decision?
So I pretty well started or decided I needed to run for this seat probably back in 2014 when I noticed that the Republican Party, which is what I used to be part of, had really not represented the voters of the Republican Party members, and really kind of usurped Ron Paul and set their own man in place. And I realized from then that, oh, this isn't really about principles and trying to find problems to solve, but rather this is all about politics. Who can be in power, who can stay in power, and who can control what and who. And that's what started the ball. And I started to realize that all I was doing for the next few years was just complaining. I was just, complaining to my friends, complaining on Facebook, complaining on, wherever. And I realized that I needed to stop complaining and start participating and start looking for ways to make changes. Since I am employed with IBM, I do a lot of international travel. So international business has really been my focus. From banking, insurance, just business in internationally speaking. So I've familiarized myself very much with things of foreign affairs, if you will, and how they relate to domestic and how the two tie together. And I started to realize that one spot that I can really fit in is to represent people that I live close to try to make an understanding that that government seems to be now the source of the problems. It's not issues like drugs, but rather how the government has handled how drugs are to be treated and handled. So I started to realize and to see these problems. Just too short of the answer is, as a computer programmer, we are trained to understand problems deeply, the root problem, not just symptom problems, but the root problem. And just with a little bit of analysis, one can quickly find that the real problem with most of our issues of today is of government interference.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney.
Byron, sure.
My next question. Healthcare is a major concern, especially the high cost of healthcare. If elected, what is your plan in addressing this problem? For instance, protecting the Affordable Care Act and the high drug costs.
Yeah, so this is probably, I'm going to guess, probably we'll be on opposite sides of the fence on this issue, but that's okay. I'll share what I believe. I do believe that the Affordable Care Act was a big mistake. I don't think that's where Congress should have attacked this problem at all. I think that the problem should have started back in the areas of the insurance companies, where insurance companies profit, as well as large medical corporations profit off of the backs of poorer people by making premiums super high, making policies where you can't take pre-existing conditions and go from one policy to another, where you can't get competitive rates because the government has locked states or locked insurance companies into state boundaries and not allow insurance companies to compete across state lines, thus bringing the prices down. To me, the major problem is the price of medicine is the major problem. And we have been, if you will, told that the only way to solve this is to have government involved in it. I contend with that. I think that getting the prices down should be the #1 priority. We need to figure out ways to do that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
And my next question is a yes or no question. Do you feel the Supreme Court should, do you feel like the Supreme Court justice should be replaced by January 1st, 2021?
You talk about Ruth Ginsburg?
Yes, Spotsfield, yes.
Yeah, yes or no answer, and my answer will be yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The next question is, a high number of employed workers are working in minimum wage jobs. Would you be inclined to pass legislation to raise the minimum wage to a living wage?
No, I would not. I would be inclined to let the government out of setting wage pricing and let true labor market competition be in place. I believe that the minimum wage is what's caused very difficult for people to get into the labor market. As you and I understand, when you start in the labor market when you're young, it's expected for you to work at a smaller price or a lower wage. And as you grow on that ladder of understanding and experience, then your wages will go up naturally, and the marketplaces will help with that. The Fair Wage Act was a wrong thing done in 1917 or something like that. And we should never have been letting the government control wages in America.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
My next question is, have you been involved in any actions for minority communities that have been negatively affected by the large industrial companies generating toxic chemicals?
No, I have not.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna turn it over to Ms. Glapion. She's gonna ask a few questions. Thank you, Mr. Kearney, for your time.
Thank you, Byron. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us this evening. My first question, Louisiana's wetlands are of great concern to residents living in those areas as well as residents across the state. Can voters be assured that you will continue funding projects that protect our wetlands?
I think we can assure the voters that I will look for the best way to protect the wetlands. It's more about the Army Corps of Engineers and how they operate. And I think that we need to get more private businesses and corporations involved in that, and less of a top down from the presidency, from the federal government downward. I think we know better in Louisiana works best for us in Louisiana. And I don't think that we need representatives from other states making decisions of what's good for Louisiana. I think tied into all that is the revenue stream that is flowing out of Louisiana, not staying in, which I think is what we need to be focusing on. I think there's a cause and effect, and I think that we need to look closer at of how we run the management of the wetlands.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next question. How important are climate action initiatives in the protection of our environment?
So climate protection initiative, I'm assuming you mean by federal mandates or laws or rules or regulations, right?
Not necessarily. Basically, do you think there's a climate crisis? And if so, do you think should be some actions taken to help us through that?
Right. I do not, from the things that I've studied, I do not see where we do have a climate crisis or change. Nothing in real science that shows that it is a problem. I do see it a lot in the politics of climate policy. which is completely different than the science of climate studies. So I will lean against anything that is politicized, that says the only way to solve a problem is from the top down to solve a problem. You know, I'm willing to listen, to learn, but you know, my solutions are always going to be based on from the low end going upward and not from a high end and going downward to solve a problem.
Thank you. Next question. What is your opinion regarding the Black Lives Matter movement?
You know, one thing I really I don't like is to put labels, because it's way too much of a shortcut to label a group or a person as one thing, as if it's just a binary choice. You either all are or you all aren't. I know that there are people in Black Lives Matter group that have legitimate issues and legitimate reasons to voice their concerns. Absolutely. But the Black Lives Matter as an organization has done a very poor job of operating. I don't know a better way of saying that. What I mean by that is, I don't think that riots and destruction of other people's property is the best way to get the message out. I think there's got to be, especially when the damage and the destruction is to their own constituents, is to their own race. It just seems counter to it. That violence has never ever been the solution. I know that Dr. King would have never have agreed to doing violence in the street, but rather to visually, vocally, forcefully, exclaim what the problem is. And so I would never go with the violence part of the Black Lives Matters, but the people have concerns and there is injustice. Qualifiable immunity, as an example, is wrong. A police officer should be held to the exact same standard as me, as anyone else. If I break a law, I ought to be punished for it. The same as a police officer, a district attorney, a judge. Anybody who breaks the law should be, dealt with according to the law, and not have some escape out for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, because statutes vary so widely across states, do you agree or disagree that there should be some federal regulation regarding stand your ground and no knock warrants?
I would agree, as long as those statutes and those laws are protecting the Fourth Amendment of equal protection under the law. As long as people are equally, as long as the laws are being applied equally to everybody, then I'm good with that. I am not the type of person who believes in no federal government. I believe that the federal government's role is to protect the people. The role of government is to protect contracts and protect property and people. That's its role. It's not a role of a babysitter or social adjusting or anything like that. That's not the role of government. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next question. What is your position on gun control?
I don't really like gun control. I never have, because it runs really against counter of, yet again, I'll refer to the Constitution and the Second Amendment, where what I'm concerned about is the gun control where I cannot scare my federal government enough. That was the framers' intention of the Second Amendment, was the right to keep and bear arms, was so that the government would not have the audacity to take away the rights of people. And unfortunately, it takes at least the threat that a well-armed citizenry can say no in a forceful way if needed to be. Not that I desire that, I'm not encouraging that, but that is certainly the most important thing. So I worry when gun control gets into place, because usually gun control is only against the honest people, the people who are the law-abiding citizens. Because you and I both know bad people, criminals, don't listen to the law in the first place. So they're going to do what they're going to do regardless of whether you put a law in. So laws only hamper the criminals, if I can say that. I'm sorry, gun control laws only hamper the good citizens. Can I say it that way? Yeah, good citizens. I'm not going to say that.
And my last question,
Yes, ma'am.
what is your opinion regarding immigration in this country and its current
Well,
state?
sure. So immigration, and I might sound like a broken record, but immigration is never stated or even mentioned in the Constitution. Naturalization is, and that's in regards to becoming a citizen. In immigrations, we didn't have immigration laws in the late 1800s and into just about the very, very early 1900s. It wasn't, immigration basically is a racist type of law. It are types of law that says certain people are worthy and certain people are not worthy. Certain people deserve things and certain people do not. And I do not believe that we should have government-controlled immigration. Marketplace immigration, absolutely. And I believe the marketplace can control the workforce movement, but people have the freedom, should have the freedom. It's a natural right to be able to move from anywhere you want to go and to be. It should be a natural right, and that's not it's not the duties of government to control the movement of people at all. And so I do not like immigration laws whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. I appreciate you answering those questions for us.
Hey, thanks, Donna. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. I want to thank you for participating in our forum. I wish you a good night and good luck in the campaign. I know it's a difficult time right now.
Hey, thanks.
Have you been involved in any actions for minority communities that have been negatively affected by the large industrial companies generating toxic chemicals?
Personally, no, I haven't. I have followed it closely and, kept up to date as much as I could. I've been really involved with primarily the LGBTQ community, since I'm a member of that. But the thing is, this country was built by diversity. That is what makes America what America is and as great as she is. And we need to finally, my goal, to be straight up, my goal is I want us to live the Constitution as it should be, that everybody is equal. People came here from all over. And the one thing I can say is that, you can go live in France, but you can't become a French person, or Italy or anywhere else. But you can come to America with your family, get an education, your house and everything, but you can become an American. That's what people comes. Our diversity is the best gift that we have. And that's just being shredded. It's time to change and live up to what our founding fathers set up this country to be.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. That was it for my questions. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Glapion. She's going to ask you a few. Thank you, Ms. Leanne.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and thanks for joining us this evening. My first question is, Louisiana wetlands are of great concern for residents living in that area and for folks all over the state. Can voters be assured that you will continue funding projects to protect our wetlands?
Most definitely. I grew up in Bayou country. I grew up in Donaldsonville and Napoleonville area. And I would take it one step further by holding the companies and the corporations accountable for the damage that they created. They created the damage, they need to repair the damage. I'm also for alternative energy. We have so much acreage and that we can use solar farms, wind farms. But I think the corporations, I would push for them to pay to repair the damage they created, which makes us in so much more danger when storms and high tides roll through.
Thank you. Next question. How important are climate action initiatives in the protection of our environment, in your opinion?
Oh, it's the number one thing. One of the first things that I want to do is get back into the climate agreement. I mean, that is what's devastating. So many storms. We've had, what, 6 in 2 months? The forest fires, people are dying. I mean, it's time to take it serious. It seems like the people we have representing us now, they think it's just, oh, a little hot weather, a little cold weather, or dry. And it's not. It's serious than that. Just look at what it's done to Louisiana and to our coastal wetlands. You know, we're going to be underwater. Everything south of I-10 is going to be underwater because of the glacier melting and the water rising. But we got to stop it now. This is our last chance, or we won't have an earth to live on.
Thank you, ma'am. Next question. What is your opinion regarding the Black Lives Matter movement?
It's definitely, I support it 100%. I mean, we have been ashamed. I guess the word is ashamed, and a disgrace the way we treated the minority community. The minority community, like I said earlier with America, we are a diverse country, and we founded it. Y'all built it, you know, we worked together to do it. And I think it's a disgrace. I am firm, one of my heroes is Martin Luther King and RBG. You know, we need to get back to that. And we need to start the healing between each other, because we're all Americans.
Thank you. Next question. Because statutes vary so much across the states, do you agree or disagree that there should be some federal regulations regarding stand your ground and no knock warrant laws?
Yes, I'm a firm believer in that. They should not be the no knock warrants. As far as stand your grounds, they've expanded it so much to include totally away from the original meaning of stand your ground, which was to be able to protect yourself in the event you're being attacked in your home. What I would do with the situation with the justice is that I call it a community emergency response team that would go out with and assist the police, but would handle more of cases. You know, you don't have to go every case with a gun pulled at the door. There's just no need for that, because it could set people off with the mental illness even more, or emotional issues they're going through. I think we need to look at that, and we need to make the community response team, you know, one of the main funding of the law enforcement community.
Thank you. And my last question is, what is your position regarding gun control?
As a gun owner, I'm for the gun control, but I have a plan that's called the National Database and Registry. Right now, our states, none of the states can communicate with each other. I would have funding provided for that, so each state can communicate with each other. I would also have the state funding to form a database, and it would be done by the state attorney general and the corrections department to those who have committed violent offenses and to include spousal abuse, child abuse, domestic violence, and they would be listed on the registry. They don't get a weapon. The other thing is for mental and emotional issues, same thing. I would have the state medical examiner and licensed doctors and judges adjudicate whether they have a mental or emotional illness in the past, present, or future, so that no one, it's not just going through a bad time. I'm talking about people who have serious PTSD, serious mental issues, that it's not just one of this depressed because I'm not working or this or that or the other, but it would be formed properly by knowledgeable people. And the final thing would be closing the gun loopholes. And this was originally put through by President Obama, was one of the primary sponsors of this, to put together a safe way to assure people of their Second Amendment rights. And as a gun owner, I don't want to take away anybody's guns, but if you're not mentally, emotionally stable, or you're involved in violent crimes, you don't need to have a weapon on you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I'm going to yield the floor to Mr. Bonner.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I have a few questions for you. One question is about the federal policy, and just in case you don't know the background information. In 2013, key provisions to the Voting Rights Act were struck down. More importantly, former Confederate states and other territories no longer have to pre-clear their redistricting maps with the Department of Justice. If you were elected to Congress, would you work to restore the Voting Rights Act?
Most definitely. To restore it, it's very basic. A short 5 or 6 line statement, resolution, and it would read that all states and territories must go through Department of Justice and to verify before changing any polling places, voting places, and put in new laws to prevent people from voting. It's a simple 2-3 line that can, restore it. And that's what I hope to do, is to restore the Voting Rights Act 100%, that all states and territories need to get approval before they change anything. That's one policy that needs to remain federal, so that we can stop all this stopping voting and intimidation that's going on and everything. They should have never, Supreme Court really messed up when they did that. But I would definitely, one of the first things that I'm going to do is a resolution for the Voting Rights Act and reinstate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. My next question is, can you give your honest opinion about the Secretary of State's emergency elections plan? If you're not familiar with it, I can just share with you that seniors between the ages of 55 and 64 have to have an excuse and a witness to witness their voting, to witness their ballot and to cast their ballot. Do you support a blanket approach for absentee voting for everyone, including our most vulnerable population?
I don't believe any restrictions. If you can't vote in person because of a health issue or a disability, you shouldn't have to explain and say, well, I have this and this and this, so I need an absentee ballot. It should not be restricted. Our constitutional right, that's one of our rights, is vote. It's the biggest and most important right at one point. No, there should be no restrictions on voting. That is our constitutional right. So there should be no laws against it as far as making people explain, why they want an absentee ballot. That's just not right. And I would make sure that, last I heard, I didn't know if that had passed or not. And that's still in question in the special session. And I wasn't sure. Thank you for letting me know that they're taking it serious for that and trying to do this, but no.